Hello friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel and welcome to another fun Halloween video. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to create a fun little piece of Halloween decor. I am using some things that I've had in my craft room for quite a long time, and hopefully this just gives you some inspiration for maybe how you can revamp or update some things that you've just had sitting around that you don't know what to do with. So this frame that I'm using here is one that I got at Hobby Lobby, and I don't shop at Hobby Lobby anymore, but I bought this and I thought, well, maybe I can do something with it. It's got this like chrome opaly, like vinyl looking background, and that just made me think like craft. So we're gonna make it Halloween. I'm going to use two pieces of vinyl that I've got. One of them, the pumpkin one, is from Hopefully Created, and then the stripes I believe are from Glamour Tribe vinyl. And we're going to do a little like split design here, kind of the same way we would on a tumbler. So I'm just eyeballing how much of each of these I want to put within my little frame area. And I'm going to do mostly that pumpkin pattern, and then we'll do just a little bit of the stripes down at the bottom, because as you can see, I've used the stripe vinyl before. So I'm just going to cut a little strip, maybe about 3 inches in height, maybe a little less than 3 inches, and then the rest will be our pumpkin pattern. So as you saw there, I cut my little strip of stripes, say that a bunch of times fast. So then I put it within my frame and I just kind of scored it with my hand to cut off the excess. So now this piece should fit pretty perfectly within the width of our frame. Before we put any of this vinyl down, I'm going to spray and clean my little glass area with some rubbing alcohol and a rag. I'm not sanding this or anything. It's glass, so I wasn't going to sand it. I don't know. If you want to prep it another way, I guess you could. I just cleaned mine with the rubbing alcohol and that was good enough for me. So now I'm ready to apply this first little strip of vinyl. So I'm going to pull back a little bit of the backing and cut that away, which will leave us with about 1/2 inch to 1 inch of adhesive exposed. And I'm going to put my stripe into my frame with that little piece of adhesive going down last. So I'm putting down, as you can see, the opposite side that has the backing on it, and I'm going to stick down that little area that's got the adhesive exposed first. And then as we stick the rest of the vinyl onto the piece, we'll push the backing away as we go, the same way we would if we were putting this piece of vinyl onto a tumbler. Sorry the view on that wasn't the greatest. Hopefully you all get a better view with the pumpkin pattern. Now the process is exactly the same. We're just going to size this within the rest of the space that we've got open. We'll mark it, cut it down, and then apply it the same way that I did with the stripe pattern. Once I've got my vinyl placed, I'm going to go through with my craft knife and just poke holes in any air bubbles that we might have after applying. Now don't worry, once we put the epoxy and glitter, of course, over this, all of those little marks and stuff will disappear and the vinyl will look pretty much perfect. And don't worry, Two, if you don't work with epoxy, you don't have to put epoxy over this. I like sealing things with epoxy because I like adding glitter and I like the shine, but if you don't like working with epoxy, or if you don't want to put epoxy on this project, you absolutely don't have to, so don't feel like you need to do this. Before epoxying though, I am going to add a stripe of vinyl to the seam where our two vinyl patterns meet. And of course, I'm using my favorite, the champagne gold textured metallic vinyl from TECKWRAP Craft. I just wanted to give that seam a little bit more of a finished look. So now I'm going to go in with my epoxy. I'm using the Flynn Sisters Supply Shop Artist Cure epoxy here, and I've got probably about maybe 40 to 50 milliliters of this epoxy. Now this will definitely depend on the size of the project you're doing, how thick of a layer you want your epoxy to be. I don't want a super thick layer, but this is a relatively large-ish frame, so I estimated that maybe like 40 to 50 would be a good amount of epoxy. And then, as I mentioned, of course, I'm adding glitter to my epoxy to give this just a little bit of sparkle. We're definitely going to add more glitter later, but to this base layer, I wanted just to give a nice subtle sparkle. So I added Rainbow Brite from Chaseray Creations into my epoxy. And you saw there, I didn't add a ton. I don't want the glitter to overpower my vinyl patterns. I just want them to have a very nice, subtle, soft sparkle. I'm gonna let this sit and cure basically until I'm ready to apply our cute little ghost to it. You'll want to let it sit at least a full 24 hours before you start moving stuff around and working with it, just to be safe. Now this little ghost that I'm using, I got last year at Joann's, rest in peace. So I don't know where you could get anything exactly like this, but I'm sure Michael's has a bunch of wooden cutouts for Halloween. You could probably look on Amazon. If there's any other craft supply places that you know of, please let me know in the comments, because your girl is struggling trying to find craft stores here. So let me know if there's any online craft places that you guys like to shop other than Amazon. So what I'm going to do here is paint this with 2 coats of plain white acrylic paint. And you saw I also removed the little hanger from the back because we don't need that. I just yanked it out. So I'm just going to paint this with my 2 coats of acrylic, and then we can move on to obviously glittering this. Of course we have to glitter it. Duh. I'm going to use a super chunky, super sparkly white glitter from Chaseray Creations on our ghost. You can use any white glitter you want. If you wanted to use even like some opal flakes or something, that might be kind of cool. We're gonna do a little bit of extra on top of our ghost later, so I wanted to use a super chunky, super sparkly glitter that will hold up to all the things we're gonna add to it. To apply the glitter, I'm using Mod Podge, and I'm going to add a little bit of a thicker coat than I normally would. Because the glitter is so chunky, I want it to kind of like grip that glitter down, if that makes sense. And the glitter I'm using, by the way, is Radioactive from Chaseray Creations. Once that glitter dried, I did add a coat of epoxy to the ghost, and I'm sorry I didn't film that part. I was just like in a panic trying to get the epoxy on, and I forgot to actually record it. So I just used about maybe like 20 milliliters of the Flynn Sisters Supply Shop Artist Cure Epoxy, spread it evenly. I did raise the ghost up on some plastic cups as well so that if anything dripped off, it would just drip off the sides and then I'll clean that up later. But now at this point, our ghost is pretty smooth with its coat of epoxy, and now we can add a little bit of extra character to him. So the first thing I'm going to do is take some regular black vinyl, and now for this you'll want to make sure that your vinyl, and most vinyl I think is, but you'll want to make sure that your vinyl is black on the other side as well, because we're going to stick this onto the back of our ghost to make his eyes black, and then when we epoxy over and add all of our details, his eyes will stay black, if that makes sense. So I'm gonna just clean up his little eye sockets, and then I'll place this piece of vinyl on the back of the ghost so that when you turn it around, his eyes are filled in and black. At this point, I also cleaned up any dripping or overlaying, is that what it's called? Any drippage from the epoxy coat that I did. So I'm just using my craft knife and kind of scraping it off or flicking it off. I also sanded the back of the ghost to smooth everything out. And honestly, it really doesn't matter what the back of your ghost looks like because we're going to epoxy it onto the frame. So nobody's going to see the back and it's going to lay flat anyway. If you have any huge drips or anything, I would get rid of those. But little tiny things don't really matter because you're not going to see them. Nobody's going to know. Before I do anything else, I'm going to paint the sides of our ghost, and I'm using a black acrylic paint pen from Posca, and I'm also going to use some regular black acrylic paint and a fine tipped paintbrush to really get into all those little nooks and crannies like at the bottom of the ghost where he's flowing around. I wanted to paint the edges black because you will be able to see them when we put him in the frame. So you can paint it black, you can do white, you could paint them like a pop of color. That might be kind of fun. Like you could do the edges, I don't know, like neon green or something fun. I don't know. Do whatever you want. Now once that's dry, we can apply that piece of vinyl to the back of our ghost to fill his eyes in. And then what I'm going to do is some little extra, we'll call it like Milky Way details on the body of the ghost. And I wanted to do this because I wanted to look like he was kind of like a spirit floating around. I wanted some movement in his little body. I didn't want just plain glitter. Of course, if you want just plain glitter, you can leave him how he is and apply him to your frame right now, but I wanted to do a little bit of extra something. So I'm first going to use some UV resin to fill in the little holes where the ghost's eyes are because I want those to be nice and smooth and solid before I go in and start adding all of my extra details. So I'm just going to put a little bit of UV resin in a mixing cup. I don't know why, honestly. You can just go directly from the bottle, but I don't know. I wanted to have a little bit more control, I guess. So I'm just going to fill in his little eye holes with my UV resin, and then I'll cure that under my lamp for maybe about 2 minutes-ish, and then we'll be ready to go in with our regular epoxy and do all of our like Milky Way detailing. Okay, so I've got a little bit of regular epoxy on my ghost here. Now, I would not at all recommend using fast setting epoxy for this process because you're really going to want the extra working time. You're going to want to be able to move your little swirls around, and you don't want to have to worry about being stressed out that your fast set epoxy is setting. So use a regular setting epoxy. You could even use UV resin for this process if you wanted to, and then just cure it either in the sun or under your UV lamp. That would give you a ton of working time because it won't cure unless you put it in the sun. So once I've spread my regular epoxy on, I'm going to just let it sit for a bit while I mix my other two colorants. And I've got maybe, this isn't taking a ton of epoxy. I've got maybe like, I think I mixed 20 or 30 milliliters. I put maybe 10 on the ghost, and now I've got about 5 in each of my cups. So I'm gonna put into one of my cups just plain white acrylic paint, and then into the other cup I'm going to add Pop's Beard from Simply Sarah and mix that together. Fun fact, my Pop's Beard little mica cup is literally epoxied to my tumbler turner. That's why you never see me putting my mica into my cup in my videos, because it's literally epoxied to my turner. So I have to go over to my turner, scoop it out from the jar that is epoxied to the turner, and put it in my cup. So that's just a fun fact that I deal with when I use that mica powder. Anyway, so I'm gonna mix these together, and I'm gonna start with the plain white mixed colorant, and I'm gonna spread that kind of diagonally across the ghost, the same way you would if you were doing a Milky Way tumbler. And I'm gonna go very lightly at first, because we can always add more, but I'm gonna go in just some diagonal little swoops along the ghost, and you can add as little or as much of you as you want. If you just want like a little tiny hint of the swirl, add just a tiny bit. You can add them just at the bottom if you want. I decided to go the whole ghost, do the whole thing. And then once I've got the white on, I'm gonna go in with the shimmery mica right over the white sections to kind of break those up a little bit, add a little bit more movement, add a little bit more shimmer. And once I've got them all applied, I'm gonna take my heat gun and I'm just gonna like blow them around a little bit, disperse the color, blow it out, move it around a little. And remember, this is not on your turner, this is sitting stationary. So you don't have to worry about your colors moving around a ton as it like spins and cures. Once everything is in place, like once you've moved it all to where you want it to be with your heat gun, you can just let it sit and it's just gonna cure that way. There's no extra movement or flowing happening. So you've got a little bit more control throughout this process than you would if it were on a tumbler turning on your turner. I'm gonna pop any bubbles with my little lighter here, and then I'm just gonna let this sit and cure for a full 24 hours. Now, once it's cured, we can apply it to our frame. Now, to apply it, I'm just gonna use epoxy. I've got my extra epoxy here. I was doing some coats on some cups, and I've got just a tiny little bit left, maybe like 5 milliliters, and I'm gonna spread that on the back of the ghost, and then I'm gonna stick it down right in the center of the frame. Now, once I set this down, I did eyeball to see if it was centered, and then my husband was like, maybe you should measure and make sure it's actually centered. So after I had it placed, I did measure it and make sure it was centered, and it was, by the way, my eyeballing was perfect. So once that epoxy is all cured, we are all done. So if you wanted to, you could add a few extra little details. You could add some little like bats flying around if you wanted. You could add a little quote if you wanted to say words. You could fill up the entire frame with epoxy and really coat the whole thing. But at this point for me, I was done. I thought it was so stinking cute. I love how it turned out. I've got it hanging up in my kitchen right now, and I just think it's so stinking cute. So I hope you all enjoyed the video. I hope it inspires you to use some things that maybe you've had sitting around in your craft room for a while, and you can just give them a new little life. If you enjoyed the video, as always, please hit the thumbs up button down below. Let me know your thoughts in the comments as well. And if you are not already subscribed to the channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any of my new videos. Thank you all so much for watching. I appreciate you more than you know, and I will see you in my next video. Okay, love you. Bye. Thank you so much for watching my video. Please make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of my upcoming videos. I want to say a huge thank you to my channel subscribers, channel members, and a special thank you and shout out to my elite fam over on Patreon. You all make this channel possible, and I am so thankful for you. If you want to get in on the elite experience and get a little bit of extra content from me, you can join at patreon.com/elitefam. All right, here's another video for you to check out. I'll see you there. Love you. Bye.